timber screen is an easy, cost-effective project that can enhance and add value to your home. Timber screens are great for privacy and also are a smart way to hide an electrical box or a bin from the street view. In this project, I'm going to be building a timber screen that's 1500mm wide and 2.2 meters high. The first step is to find adequate framing within the house to attach my post. I'm going to use 175mm by 10mm diameter coach bolts. The reason I'm wearing a mask is because the cladding of this house contains asbestos fibres. The next step is to go through and transfer the positions of the frame of the house onto my post. This will give me the positions on where I can use my coach bolts to bolt the post to the house. I'm using Sikaflex and plastic packers to pack out the post off the wall so it ends up being plumb and straight. The next step is to pre-drill the posts in preparation for the coach bolts. I need to take a small notch out of my post to make allowance for the cover strip on the wall. I'll be using an impact driver to attach the post to the wall with the 175mm coach bolts. The second post will be concreted into the ground. I've already dug a hole that's 800mm deep with a 400mm wide diameter. The next step is to use a timber peg and some temporary bracing to attach the second post. Before I install the second post, I put a few shovelfuls of gravel into the hole for drainage. I can use my temporary bracing to attach my second post. The next step is to make sure the post is plumb in both directions. I'm using a bit of old timber here as temporary bracing. Before you pour any concrete, just double check the posts are plumb. For this project, I'm using pre-mixed concrete out of a bag, tipping it into a wheelbarrow and mixing with water. Once the concrete's set, I cut the post to height, installed a top plate, and I've given all the timber work one coat of Solar Guard paint. My next step is to attach the remaining pieces of the timber frame. Once the timber frame is finished, I'm going to go through and give the timber work a second coat of paint. I'm using a white SolarGuard product. The next step is to go through and cut all my timber screening to the correct length. This timber screen is going to be 2.2 meters high. My timber screen is 1500 millimeters wide. I'm going to need 32 boards cut at 2.2 meters. Once all my boards are cut to the correct length, I'm going to go through and number them from 1 to 3, being 1 being the straightest to 3 being the most bent. I'm going to use the straightest boards to be installed at every 5th board. I've picked a straight piece of timber to be my template. Next, I'll transfer the positions of the framing onto my template. I can then use my template to transfer the screw line onto the remaining pieces of timber. The next step is to install the first screening board. I'm going to need to scribe and plane in the first board to make it fit plumb against the old house. Once my first board is scribed and planed in, it's ready to screw on. I've laid a piece of timber on the ground level for all the boards to sit on. Due to the old house being slightly out of plumb, I'm going to utilise my first 3 boards to bring the screen back to a plumb position. Once my third board is installed plumb, I can go through and measure the screen to be perfectly parallel. A quick adjustment to the top plate here, and we're ready to start installing the screening boards. Quickly check my bottom guide piece of timber's level. I'm now ready to install my end piece of screening board. Just double check everything's level, plumb and parallel. The next step is to work out the exact set out of our screening boards. The width between our 2 parallel boards is 1407. If we divide that by 30 boards, it's going to give us a spacing of 46.93 millimeters for each board. Our screening boards are 42 millimeters wide, so that's going to leave us with a 5mm gap between each board. Works out great. I will then calculate every 5th board's position and go through and install every 5th board on the screen. In my experience, I've found this to be the most accurate and efficient way to set out timber screens. This method can also be used to set out timber decks. Once every 5th board has been installed at the correct spacing, all you need to do is go back and start filling in between. I'm using 50mm stainless steel screws to attach the timber screening to my frame. I use timber wedges to space the boards evenly between every fifth board. As every fifth board has been installed perfectly straight, you can go through and use the timber wedges to space the remaining boards to have a parallel gap. The next step is to install 3 boards to cover the end of our screen. The space to cover is 110mm using 3 boards. Our boards are 42mm wide with a 5mm gap. This means I'll need to plane 8mm from each board for the set out to work. The last job is to screw the final 3 boards into position.